Hello, hello. This is the Benchmade Freek. This is a knife that I recently acquired, used, but in nearly new condition. Still got the factory edge on it, that very toothy characteristic factory edge from Benchmade. And, as you can see, the black coating on this blade is pretty clean. There's one little spot here on the reverse. Sorry about the color here. I've got an artificial light and natural light from the window, and they are a little bit different color temperature, and so the camera is trying to adjust, and it's going sort of back and forth between favoring one and favoring the other. So if this looks a little greenish or bluish, it's not. It is a gray. It's a dark gray and a black G10 handle and a black coated blade. So yeah, I mean, I got this knife for a pretty reasonable discount since it is used. And yet I'm finding it kind of underwhelming. And the question I'm asking myself today is, why is that? Because, the design has a lot of the characteristics that I would normally want in a pocket knife. And the materials are good. So what is it about this knife that is just making me feel a little underwhelmed? Well, let's talk about what it is first, and then let's talk about how it compares with some other options. This is an American-made, Benchmade Freek. It's the full size. There have been previous versions of this knife, a mini Freek. There's a current mini Freek actually that is in S90V that is even more expensive than this. The full-size Freek right now is in M4, and this retails new for $225, which is a lot of money for a pocket knife, but not really out of character for Benchmade. If we look at some of the other knives in their catalog and what they're going for right now, this is not an unusually expensive knife, given the materials and the American manufacturing and the premium that you can pay for a brand name like Benchmade, which does add quite a bit to the expense of some knives. The handle is made of sculpted G10. The earlier versions of the Freek had sort of a rubberized material on them. In theory, I think I would prefer the G10, except in practice, it is not a real grippy G10, even though it does have some milling on it, does have some texture, and it is chamfered, and it's, relatively comfortable to hold, but it's not very grippy. It is, there's jimping up here, which helps a lot. There are some, not quite a finger groove, but some contours in the handle that help you lock in. But it's really the geometry of the handle that provides a secure grip, not the material so much. And as G10 goes, this is not, my favorite iteration of G10 in terms of texture. The appearance of it is fine. Right there, I'm getting a better representation of the color now. It's that gray and black. And it's got the red liners and red barrel spacers, red anodized barrel spacers. It does not have full steel liners. It has the sort of cartridge liners or partial liners that Benchmade has been using on a lot of knives recently. But it doesn't have the flex that you would see in something like a bug out, right, that has partial liners and then a polymer or reinforced nylon scale. This G10 is more robust, and so it doesn't flex the way that some of Benchmade's knives do that have partial liners. It's got, of course, the axis lock, which you can flip open and close pretty smoothly, pretty easily. Some people are cautious about this lock because the omega spring that's part of the action of the lock can theoretically break. I think that that's pretty rare under normal usage. I own several Benchmades. I have yet to break an omega spring. But yeah, it could happen. And there are stronger locks on the market, but I think that the axis lock is a pretty good design, pretty reliable. It is, you can open and close the knife without putting your fingers in the path of the blade, which is a good thing. And now that this patent has expired, we're starting to see a lot of other knife companies making knives that have this or very similar style of lock. The blade is M4 steel, which is a powder metallurgy steel made by Crucible in the United States. It is very tough, right? You're more likely to get a roll than a chip on the edge of an M4 knife if you're doing some heavy tasks with it. And it is also strong. It'll hold an edge. It's hard, I should say. It'll hold an edge for a good long time. It is somewhat challenging to sharpen, but if you have experience sharpening or you have the right sharpening equipment, it's not too bad. I own some knives in M4, and I have been able to sharpen them without too much difficulty, using like my Ken Onion Work Sharp. I could even sharpen them on a stone if necessary, although it will take more passes than softer steel would. But that's the price you pay to get good edge holding, good edge retention. The weakness of M4 steel is that it is not stainless steel. So having this black coating on the blade is not just for looks, it's also to protect the blade from corrosion and rust. You can still get spots of rust on the edge itself, but of course when you sharpen it, you'll be sharpening through those and they'll disappear pretty quickly. Of course, when you use a knife like this, you're eventually going to start to wear off that coating. And so, yeah, I mean, once it's well worn, it's going to not only have some places where that coating's missing, but it's also going to have some spots where you're going to start to see a patina. That's to be expected, and I don't think that's necessarily all that big of a deal. In a knife that is intended to be used. Right, so the handle material, I have a little gripe about that being sort of having less texture than I would like for G10. Also, this pocket clip, I have some other Benchmades that have the same pocket clip on them. And this one, because of the shape of the handle, positions that bill where it sweeps up to kind of poke me right in the fleshy part of the hand here, in my palm. Not down here, but below the finger joints. And I mean, that's not going to be a problem at all if you're just doing a little, whipping it out and cutting a little piece of rope or making a little short task, breaking down some cardboard boxes or something like that. But if you're going to be using it for an extended period of time, if you got to break down a lot of cardboard boxes, or if you're going to, use it for a project, an outdoor project, doing some you know, bushcraft kind of stuff, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a hot spot. And, you know, that's a shame. Benchmade does have some knives with a smaller clip that is more rounded. Right, this is a deep carry clip. It's bent over, and this is on the bug out, and that's more comfortable. Of course, you know, having the additional length on this one does give a little more stability, which on a knife that's a little heavier and a little longer, you know, kind of makes sense. Even so, you know, if you have another knife that has that same clip, here's the Benchmade Crooked River. It's the same clip, I think. Let's see. Yep. Because of the way that the Crooked River curves, in my hand, that sharp point ends up going into the space kind of between fingers, instead of stabbing me right in the sort of fleshy part of the hand, the way that the way it does, just on the way that this handle is shaped on the Freek, creating a hot spot. Whereas, even though it's the same clip, you know, the Crooked River, the handle is kind of curved. It's bigger. It's a little bit longer handle, and the position of it just works out for my hand, and I suspect probably for a lot of other people, where that's not a problem. So yeah, since I've got a couple of Benchmades here, let's talk about Benchmade's pricing. All right, so is the Freek overpriced? Well, I'll tell you what, the previous version of the Freek was a lot less expensive. It was it retailed for $127. That was with the S30V blade and the rubberized handle. And yeah, okay. I mean, M4 is a steel you would expect to pay more for, partly because the materials are maybe a little bit more expensive, but largely because it's more expensive to machine a harder steel, right? You're going to have to use heavier duty milling bits and equipment, and you're going to wear through them faster. So that's going to be built into the price of the blade. So the production of it is going to take longer and have more wear and tear on your equipment. So, okay, I guess an M4 blade can be a little more expensive than an S30V blade. You know, it's similarly proportioned, really, to the Griptilian, the full-size Griptilian, right? You know, the Griptilian is a clip point. Well, this one is. There's also a sheep's foot version of the Griptilian, but versus the drop point in the Freek. But, you know, blade length similar, edge similar cutting edge, similar handle size, and also these are pretty substantial in terms of the width of the handle. Now, this has got aftermarket scales on it. These are micarta scales, but they're the same dimensions and shape as the polymer scales that were originally on there. And yeah, I mean, G10 is more premium material than an injection molded plastic. Okay, so that's part of the expense. This Griptilian, current production Griptilian in S30V, which is also American made, is what, $126, right? It's like $100 less than the Freek. All right, well, okay, so yes, we would expect this would be a little more than this. $100 more? Maybe. You know, this is still S30V on the Crooked River. This is more, right? This is, what do these go for? $261 in S30V. This is a clip point blade as well. It's a little bit longer right? It's a little bit larger, both in the blade and the handle, than the Freek. But not a lot. You know, they're both full-size knives. This is pushing 4 inches. This is 3.6 or something. Yeah, different materials. This has got aluminum bolsters and what Benchmade calls diamond wood, which is, you know, one of several names for a stabilized wood product that's, you know, it's laminated layers of wood with epoxy resin to prevent it from warping when it gets wet and, you know, subjected to different temperatures and stuff like that. Same locking mechanism. Yeah, I mean, this, I think, you know, is a little bit more gentlemanly. I don't know really whether those materials, you know, work out to be more expensive, or if the production process is any more complicated. I mean, working with wood is a different process than working with injection molded materials, for sure. But then, you know, G10 is going to be milled in much the same way that wood would be. And there is an M4 version of the Crooked River. This is the full-size Crooked River, right? This is not a mini. It's a Knife Center exclusive right now, and that goes for $297 with an M4 blade that's black coated. So yeah, that would seem to suggest that would be you know, it's more than the Freek with similar materials, and it's a little bigger, and, you know, the fact that this bolster is you know, part of the design maybe complicates things just a tiny bit. So okay, doesn't seem to suggest that the Freek is priced really in an unusually high price point. You know, this is one of the more expensive production versions of the Benchmade Bug Out. This is an M390, which, you know, is another premium steel, and these go for oh, I don't remember exactly. I didn't write it down, but it's over $200. I mean, it's in the same, it's like 240-ish, right? So it's in the same ballpark, and it's smaller, right? Again, we've got a black hooded blade. This is M390 with aluminum, partial steel liners. Same locking mechanism, right? Here's another M4 knife from Benchmade. This is the Bailout. Bailout in M4 goes for $234, right? So just a few dollars more than the Freek. Aluminum handles instead of G10. Okay, so that would seem to suggest that the pricing is not really unusually high on the Freek compared to other things in Benchmade's lineup. And it's not really unusually high compared to other sort of well-regarded name brand knife makers in the US using similar materials. So for example, here is the Spyderco Shaman in M4, right? This was Blade HQ exclusive, and this version, the uncoated blade, was $245. You can't get it anymore. I don't think they're going to be bringing it back, but they have a black coated version, which is also an M4 for $259. So that's even more expensive. You know, a little bit different materials. We got micarta here instead of G10. Different lock mechanism, right? This is the compression lock, Spyderco's compression lock, instead of the axis lock. But those are both, you know, good, well-regarded locks. So yeah, it's in the same ballpark. All right, so if my only real complaints about this are I don't love the material the handle's made out of. I don't love that it doesn't have full liners, which, by the way, the Shaman does have full liners. They're drilled out for weight relief, but they do run all the way to the backspacer here. Steel liners. I don't love the pocket clip on this, but you know, there are aftermarket options. What is it about this knife that I'm finding underwhelming? You know, I love this Shaman, which, you know, it's around the same price and similar materials. And it has, you know, similar cutting edge, similar sort of girth. So both of these are very hand-filling knives, right? I do prefer the choil on the Shaman versus this sort of dead space here where the ricasso meets the handle on the Benchmade. Well, I think the reason that I'm not loving this Freek is that I got it one day after I got this. This is a Gerber Sumo, which has what Gerber calls the pivot lock, right? Which is just, it's the same thing as the axis lock now that that patent has expired. All right, well, now why the hell am I comparing these? Well, you know, okay, they both have G10 handles that are gray and black, and they're both big, you know, full-size knives. The Sumo is even a little bit bigger than the Freek. They both have pivot locks, but some pretty significant differences. This is made in China. This is made in the U.S. Obviously, you know, I would prefer to buy an American-made knife, all things being equal, right? You don't have to necessarily agree with that, you know, but that's you know, my preference. They both have, you know, a little bit of pop. The Sumo has this blue. It's got full liners, right? They're blue and blue standoffs, blue barrel spacers, whereas this has red material and red barrel spacers. The Sumo has got, you know, similar handle construction and materials, but the blade is not really comparable at all. This is a 7CR 17 MOV steel. It's a cheap, tough but not very hard stainless steel, and it's the biggest disappointment about this knife. So why compare them, right? Well, here's the thing that I can't help thinking is that if Gerber put this knife out in M4, I would prefer it if it was American made and with an M4 blade, it would be better than this Freek in pretty much every regard. I mean, it would have a more comfortable pocket clip in terms of creating a hot spot, has the same axis lock, right? It has what I think is a little bit preferable handle shape in terms of ergonomics. It doesn't have a usable finger choil like the Shaman does. You know, it's got the same sort of situation as the Freek here, but it's just hard not to compare these two. Just, you know, maybe just because I got them in close proximity to each other in time, right? I bought them one day apart. But, man, this is a better design. This is better materials. This is like $40, guys. Now, is it going to be more expensive if you made it in the U.S.? Of course it would. Is it going to be more expensive if you made it out of M4? Yeah, but you know, Gerber makes the Cedulo, which is not quite as big, but almost as big. It has the same locking mechanism. That's made in the U.S. in Oregon, and it has an S30V blade, and it's like $120. So I guess if I'm saying anything, I'm saying, hey Gerber, here's an idea, free advice. Make this knife, make an M4 premium version of this knife, and price it well below the Spyderco and Benchmade options, and it would be killer. It would be a real winner. So you know, I don't I don't have any reason to expect that Gerber is going to see this video, but hey, if you know somebody at Gerber, maybe drop them a little suggestion. Make this knife in these materials. Yeah, and you know, it's I'm not trying to be totally unfair. You know, I mean, it would be unfair to look at something like this, right, which is Ganzo, right, which is using their version of the axis lock and a design that is pretty much a rip-off otherwise of a lion steel knife, right? I mean, the blade shape, handle shape, even this contouring pattern are pretty much directly stolen from lion steel, except that lion steel is it's a frame lock with a sort of an extra safety lock, the roto block system, versus this axis lock design. This is 440C, right? It's a drop point blade. Similar length, similar proportions, you know, similar use as the Benchmade Freek. This thing's like $30. It's like 28 bucks or something like that. G10 scales, right? Contouring is a lot like the contouring on the Freek, but much grippier, right? This is ergonomically superior. It has full liners. It weighs more as a consequence of that. I mean, this is a little lighter. And this is getting close to pocket anchor territory, right? All right, but let's say you really don't want to buy a Chinese knife, and you know, okay, 440C is a good steel, but it's not M4. But damn, if you put M4 in that, you'd be putting the Shaman and the Freek for a real run for their money. So, a little unsolicited advice for Gerber. Hey, psst, Gerber, make an M4 blade for this. All right, thanks.